Council. Yes, we're ready to begin.
Welcome everybody. It is 9:10 and I'll call this meeting to order. Gina, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Chairman Greg Smith,
Here.
Board Member Roland Barrera, Barbara Canales,
Here.
Brent Chesney. Here. Paulette Guajardo. Present. Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Michael Hunter will be late. Billy Lerma.
Here.
John Martinez. Ben Molina.
Present.
Jim Needham. Sylvia
Here.
Trump. Sylvia Oliver. Mike Pusley. Dr. Lori Turner. Peter Zanoni.
Here.
Lori Turner, okay, and Peter Zanoni.
Present.
A quorum of the board is present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Bocina, did we receive any written public comment?
We did not.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item of business is the minutes. Is there any correction to the minutes? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next item is financial report. Ms. Hubert.
Good morning. Heather Holbert, Director of Finance. So we'll wait for the presentation to come up. No, I need the finance presentation, please. Okay. Okay. So the financials that we're reviewing today are for the 8 months ending August 31st, 2022. The fund began the year with a fund balance of $4.4 million. Revenues to date are $5.3 million, which are primarily from the property tax collections within the zone. To date, as of August 31st, we had paid $40,000 in debt. That was just our debt, our principal payment. And actually in September, the final payment on the debt was made. That'll be reflected in next month's presentation. We had administrative services of $65,000, leaving the fund with an ending fund balance of $9.6 million. Of that $9.6 million, currently $1.5 million is reserved for the bond reserve. That will be released once that final bond payment was made. And then in addition, there is a $500,000 reserve for maintenance of the Packery Channel that was put in place many years ago. Next slide, please. So then looking at the CIP projects, so these balances are not reflected in that fund balance. When those projects are adopted and approved, the money is moved over into the CIP fund. So we currently have the Park Road 22 Bridge project, which is currently underway. Then we also have the Packery Channel, the FEMA restoration, which is currently underway. We have $4 million that are waiting for dredging for the completion of the repairs to the Packery Channel. Once that is done, then that major dredging project will kick off. We have $71,000 left for monitoring, and then we have $286,000 that is in the reserve appropriation that would be available to move to any project that may need it. So currently there's a balance of $14.4 million in the CIP fund. Then that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. We have any questions? Any online questions? Okay, thank you on there. The next item is item number 3, motion to approve the calendar for future agenda items.
Yes, so this is the calendar. The TIRZ is scheduled to meet about every 2 months. And then we also meet in June and July to discuss the budget. So this is just a set calendar. At any time, we can call special meetings and add more meetings to the calendar, but this is just the set calendar for calendar year 23.
Second.
And I'd just like to make the comment that this is based on we're going to have a TIRZ. So as we travel down the extension of the TIRZ, because the TIRZ does expire December 31st of this year. So, yeah. Yeah, okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Online? Motion passes on there. With it, okay, the next item is motion recommending the city council extend the term of the TIRZ for an additional 20 years, with expiration date of December 31st, 2042. So we talked earlier about some of the oncoming projects with it. You want to brief us on that?
Sure. So what I'll do is that I have prepared a presentation that will include information for item number 4, 5, and 6. So what we'll do is go through the whole presentation, and then we'll come back around and take action on those items as proposed. So what we want to walk through today is looking at the TIRZ process overview. So what are the steps to extend the TIRZ, to make modifications to the TIRZ, make modifications to the project and financing plan. So we'll walk through that along with talk about what we really need to accomplish today versus what can be talked about at a future date. We'll look at a TIRZ outlook, looking at the potential development that is occurring on the island and what that could mean to the revenue of the TIRZ. Then we will talk about the extension of time and make a recommendation on what that extension of time is recommended at, modification of the boundaries with a recommendation, the project and financing plan amendment with recommendation, and then we'll talk about next steps. So looking at the process overview. So the first thing is to extend the term. Then we would modify boundaries if needed, or as needed actually. Choose projects and expenses to be paid through the TIRZ. So look at the needs of the TIRZ over the next either short term and or long term. Set the city contribution amount. Currently the TIRZ is at 100%. But I know that there had been discussions about reducing that percentage just because of the growth that is expected to occur on the TIRZ, on the island, and what are the needs of the TIRZ and how much revenue do we need to be able to accomplish those needs. Then we would amend the project and financing plan. So once it's decided what the TIRZ needs to accomplish and how much revenue is needed to accomplish that, then the project and financing plan would be amended to include those projects and or activities along with amend the total dollar amount. Then we would amend the interlocal agreement with Nueces County. Just a reminder that the TIRZ is actually is the city's TIRZ. So the city creates the TIRZ, and then other taxing entities participate in the TIRZ through an interlocal agreement. So the actions to extend, to amend boundaries, to change composition of the board, and to approve the amended project and financing plan sits with the city council since it is a city TIRZ, but we do get participation and feedback and through our partnering agencies, our taxing entities, and they participate through an interlocal agreement to contribute an amount equal to whatever that percentage of contribution is. And then once we the next step then would also explore participation in interlocal agreement with Del Mar College. Early on in the process, earlier this year, we had reached out to Del Mar College and they are interested in considering participation. At the time, we didn't have a set project and financing plan to discuss what the funds were going to be used for. Once the decision to extend has been decided and we have a better idea of what that project and financing plan may look like, then we can make the presentation to the Del Mar College Board and see if they would like to participate. In addition, the Nueces County Commissioners Court did approve a motion on September 14th to support extension of the TIRZ, request boundary modifications, and add 2 additional seats on the TIRZ board. The city has not received any type of official correspondence on that, but we do know that that occurred. And then on October this 12th, the Commissioner Court also approved a motion to request an amount of $2 million for renovations to the Briscoe King Pavilion from the TIRZ board. This project has been communicated with the chairman, and we will go a little bit more in depth on a discussion as we go through the amendment of the project and financing plan. Yes, I'm sorry. So talking about what we need to accomplish today, what would be best to accomplish today, is a recommendation from the board to City Council to extend the term. In addition, a recommendation to modify the boundaries for the Whitecap development, a recommendation to amend the TIRZ project and financing plan to include the requested projects, and then a recommended preliminary contribution amount. Just like I said, just a reminder, the board will be making a recommendation to City Council, and then City Council will actually be taking action on these items. Then what can be discussed at future meetings is discussing the future revenue, looking at what the TIRZ is going to produce based off of the expected development, those that are already in progress, and those future amounts. What does that revenue look like? And then modeling what a contribution amount may need to be. Discuss future projects and expenses. So what is in the long term for the TIRZ? What is needed on the island? What projects are needed? Things like that. Recommendation for additional boundary modifications as requested by Nueces County. Discuss participation by Del Mar. Recommend amendments to the TIRZ project and financing plan to include future project and expenses. So again, taking that discussion and memorializing that in the project and financing plan. And then recommend contribution amount and possible contribution cap. So just a high-level outlook of the TIRZ as it stands right now. There is substantial development that is anticipated within the zone over the next 10 to 12 years. So as of right now, we do have commitment from the Whitecap Preserve Development that they're estimating an estimated investment of $850 million over the next 10 years in their development. In addition, Lake Padre Development is moving forward. They're anticipating an anticipated $700 million in investment over the next 12 years. And then in addition to these 2 large master plan developments, there are, we've talked with several other developers and or groups that are interested in various projects, including hotel and entertainment venues, that we're anticipating an additional $500 million in investment over the next 5 to 7 years. So if you look at that, that is over $2 billion in investment expected over the next 12 years. That is a significant amount on the island, and that really does change what that TIRZ looks like as we move forward. So then just a quick overview on the current and future revenues. So in fiscal year 22, the TIRZ generated $6 million in revenue with 100% contribution from all the taxing entities. So that is the city, Nueces County, and the hospital district. 100% of that contribution over the base year produced $6 million. Based on developer build-out schedules and conservative growth projection modeling, the TIRZ is expected to generate the following average revenue for the next 20 years. So it's broken down by different contribution levels and if Del Mar does participate or not. So at a current 100% contribution, the TIRZ could, on average over the next 20 years, produce $23.3 million a year. That is a year. With Del Mar were to participate, that would be $28.4 million a year. At a 75% contribution, it would produce $17.5 million a year, or $21.3 million if with Del Mar's participation. If we were to look at a step down with an immediate decrease to 75% for 5 years, and then a 5% step down to 50% over the next 5 years, the TIRZ would produce on average $12.7 million a year, or $15.4 million a year with Del Mar participation. And then finally, if we were to look at a 50% contribution, the TIRZ would produce on average $11.7 million per year, or $14.2 million with Del Mar's participation. This was modeled with the current tax rates as adopted for tax year '22, based on developer projected build-out schedules over the next 12 years. So this really is a game changer with the anticipated development. Now, I modeled these specific levels, but the board could recommend anything in between or below that amount. But as we really need to understand what the TIRZ needs and what projects we want to include in that project and financing plan before we look at setting finalizing that contribution amount. The other thing that we're going to have to work through is we are working with the Texas Comptroller and our legal specialist to understand the potential effect on the truth and taxation calculation as modified by SB 2. That is where we have the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate. We know that this will affect it somehow, but we are working with the experts to understand what may or may not happen with that and how that may or may not affect the city's tax rate going forward. So just some examples of what is happening on the island. These are some aerials of the Whitecap development. Here you see the canals are already being, the land work is being done, canals are being cut in, and there's already been a lot of land, soil movement, dirt movement in that area. In addition, this is an overview of the Lake Padre development. The top picture is the section of the Lake Padre development that is between 361 and the Park Road 22 water exchange. The picture to the right is from the water exchange canal down towards Whitecap. So those are two different sections. There's already streets being poured in there. They've got some, they've already bulkheaded the lake area and then are working on utilities improvements in those areas. So then moving on to a discussion about the extension of the term. Under Tax Code 311 is the statute that defines the tax increment zones. And per section 311.007, the extension of a zone does not need to meet the original intention or designation criteria set forth when the zone was required or were created. And so per legal counsel and as second opinion legal counsel, we feel that we are able to extend the term on this TIRZ. So what the recommendation is that we extend the term for 20 years with a new term of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2042. And for right now, maintain 100% contribution until further discussions can be had as to future projects and expense needs of the TIRZ. That 100% would just be a placeholder for right now, and then after the first of the year, come back and we can modify what that is. But we do need a contribution percentage, basically within that, to extend the term. Any questions on the extension?
Move to approve the motion.
All right, Commissioner Chesney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nueces County, the motion that was passed in regards to the extension of the TIRZ was three-pronged. It was a motion to request for the $2 million for Briscoe King Pavilion, and to note, the county has been a participant in this TIRZ since the inception, and I don't believe the county has ever made a request for any funding from the TIRZ, and so I think that's right, Heather, right? And
yeah.
So that I think that would hopefully be noted, that this is the first request the county has made. I don't think it will be the last, but certainly with all the money that the county has put in, we felt the $2 million ask for Briscoe King Pavilion, which is for any of you, pardon? It went off? Oh, okay. It says on here.
It does.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I hit that. Press that. What did I need to do? That's. Oh.
Try it now.
Is that working now?
No.
No? Okay, we'll try this one. That has red on it too, though. Is that better? No?
Let's turn that one on.
How about that? No, still says red.
Hello? Okay. Hello?
Hello.
Hello? It's not working? All right.
There you go.
That one does. Okay, there we go. We'll try this one. Okay, so how's that? Hearable?
Sarah.
No? Okay, well, I'm just gonna, I'll talk and I'll do the best. It is green.
Here, you want paper?
You want that one? Okay, let's go there.
Yeah.
We'll try them all.
Is this like a... Am I getting punked? I mean, I know I don't, how's that working?
No.
Okay, I break them all. I don't think you were on either.
That's fine. We need to call.
Well, we need it for the record. Yeah.
Why is ours working? Hello? Is that working, Sarah? The handheld?
This is.
Hello,
green,
hello?
and the
No,
switch
now
is
mine is
on.
off too.
Oh, no, I don't want to take your seat. I would never, no, I would never. Huh? No, no, I would.
Well, the
Okay.
podium was working, is it?
Does this one work? Yes.
There you go.
Hello.
We got one.
Okay. Well, attorney chair, so now you're representing us legally.
Yeah, there we go. Actually, I want Zanoni's, no, I don't either. Okay, so.
Judge Chesney.
Okay, so back to what I was saying, the county has not made a presentation, or not made a request for funds in the time that we have been a member of the TIRZ, and so this was our first request. The motion had a caveat that we certainly anticipate coming back for more requests. The second part of the motion was to increase the boundaries, of which we submitted a meets and bounds document to show where those would be, which would increase the boundaries to include all contiguous county projects, which is allowable. And then the other request from the county was to increase our board participation basically to the percentage that we participate financially. Currently, we only have 2 members of the board, but our participation level financially would indicate that we should have 4, and that was the 3-pronged motion that the Commissioners Court passed, and to obviously extend the TIRZ for that 20 years. The other part was the Commissioners Court passed the 75% one that Heather was talking about, where we start at 75%, go down 5% each year until we get to the 10th year, and then 11 through 20 would be at 50%. That was the motion passed by the Commissioners Court because we felt this TIRZ was vitally important. We felt that with the increase that this would show, even at the 75% level, it would also capture some additional money for those of us, you included, that would go back into our general fund, but it would continue to make sure that the TIRZ was active, was strong, and was generating more money now based on these numerical projections that Heather just talked about. So currently the TIRZ is raising about, I think, $6 million. And even at the 50% projection, it's going to hit about 12. So that's a substantial gain, and then it puts more money back in the pockets of the city of Corpus Christi and Nueces County. So those were the motions that have been passed unanimously by the Nueces County Commissioners Court, and we hope that the board will see that favorably and see those requests and grant those requests today. I don't know if that's all you needed from me or.
Yeah. Well, I think once we get into the financing, a little bit more on the Briscoe King with it. So Heather, the Commissioners Court has passed a financing plan. Could we pass that or discuss that today and pass that so we're in concert with the court?
Yes, we can. We can modify the motions to include the extension of the addition of the seats along with the boundary modification.
Okay, and you briefed us on what the county's proposed financing plan would be. That ends up at $11 million a year on it.
Yeah, so, yeah, we can recommend that city council approves that same modeling. The only hesitation I would have is the fact that we don't know how that's gonna affect both the counties and/or the city's tax rate yet. And so, that would just be something that we would need to work through.
Can you go through that breakdown again?
Yeah, let's go back to the financing one.
Are these working at all? No. Okay, so what we had walked through is at 100% contribution, it would be on average $23.3 million per year. At a 75% contribution, an average of $17.5 million per year. the step down from 75% to 50%. So it would be 5 years at 75%, and then a step down, a reduction of 5% per year, stepping down to 50% over 5 years would produce on average $12.7 million per year. And then a 50% contribution would produce $11.7 million per year based off of the build-out schedules given to us by the developers, along with the conservative growth estimates on the island.
Is that the city and county both?
That is combined, the city and county.
Okay.
That first column does not include anything, including Del Mar. The second column would be if Del Mar were to participate.
Okay, I have some questions when it gets to my turn.
Okay, you're up.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So Heather, this 100% contribution, so if we just said 100% contribution for the 20 years, it's going to earn $23.3 million a year based on today's tax structure.
On today's tax structure based off it, and that's on average, so
Right.
it'll produce less in the near years and more in the far years as that development ramps up.
So Commissioner Chesney, what was the county's, what did y'all want to do now? Just 100% for the first?
75% for the first 5 years, and then down 5% each year until year 10, and then from 11 through 20, level it at 50%.
50%.
Because those first 5 years, it's a pretty.
So you're going to
significant-
start out at 75%?
That was what the county,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So Heather, can you talk a little bit about what happens if the TIRZ, and I think this is just good for the public to know, as well as me. What happens if the TIRZ is not in place? So the TIRZ is capturing ad valorem taxes that are assessed against properties as growth occurs.
Exactly.
So it's capturing the differential between what the
base year.
the tax base is at this point and what it grows in future years.
Exactly. So this
Okay.
TIRZ has been in place for almost 20 years now. So the base year was as of what was in place when the TIRZ was formed 20 years ago.
Right.
And then the growth that is over that base years, the TIRZ is capturing 100% of the tax revenue that is produced on that increment, not including the base year, on that increment from both the city, the county, and right now the hospital district. The
Okay.
hospital district will not be able to participate in the next term because of the change in the statutes, they're not eligible to be able to participate.
Okay. So if the TIRZ did not exist, then those monies would just, those differential earnings as they increase would just go back into the respective coffers of the city and the county and Del Mar if they choose to participate.
Exactly. It would go back into the general fund because it is property taxes, and debt service divided by where the tax rate is. And the power of a TIRZ is the fact that you kind of multiply those tax collections because you have more than one taxing entity participating in those funds or pools. So that's what
No, I understand that. So, so the point being for the TIRZ is, or the reason for the TIRZ is that we can capture those funds from multiple taxing entities, and then we can dedicate those funds directly to projects within the TIRZ.
Exactly. Or
So
for
that
the
they
benefit
don't go
TIRZ.
outside of the TIRZ, and I'm educating the public here, Heather, so bear with me.
Yes.
So that they don't go outside of that area to be spent on other projects. So this keeps the money local to that specific area,
Yes.
whatever we end up having as far as the geographical boundaries are concerned.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to jump in. You were, as you said that, you said the boundaries, or you were saying you were about to say
Or
something.
the assets that are things that are to the benefit of the TIRZ. So you can use TIRZ money in certain situations for projects that would be for the benefit of the TIRZ, but aren't specifically located within the
Right.
TIRZ boundary.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, specifically community gathering areas and things like that. Yeah, it's a very narrow window, but you can do that. Correct.
Chairman Smith, I believe Ms. Canales might want to speak.
Yes, I'm working down the line.
Okay.
Thank you. Board Member Hernandez?
Okay, I wanted to kind of go back to some of the things that you'd mentioned, that we do not have to comply with the legislation for a designated reinvestment zone in order to renew it, right? I think from the attorney's perspective, and I'd like to make sure I understand this correctly, it just doesn't address it in the legislation as to whether or not you can renew it or not that way. It's not specifically stated. It's so are you making the assumption that we can renew it based on the fact that it's not nothing is stated?
I believe the opinion that I gave was that the law does not specifically require it, and that even if it did, we can meet those requirements. The opinion we got from outside counsel was that it's not required.
Okay, so I want to read that specifically in section 311.005, criteria for investment zone. To be designated a reinvestment zone, an area must substantially arrest or impair the sound growth of a municipality or county designated zone, retard the provision of housing accommodations, or constitute an economic or social liability, and be a menace to public health, safety, morals, or welfare in its present condition, or to be used because in the presence of a substantial number of substandard, slum, deteriorated or deteriorating structures, faulty layout in retaliation to size, adequacy, accessibility, and usefulness, unsanitary and unsafe condition, the deterioration of the site or other improvements, tax or special assessment delinquency exceeding the fair value of land, defective or unusual conditions of title, conditions that endanger life, property, or fire, and there's other assessments of federally assisted new community or municipality, and the definition of that is kind of like the 9% housing tax credit kind of programs. I state that in the sense that, you know, the TIRZ doesn't quite meet that, and I don't have an issue with us continuing the TIRZ, but I wanted to make sure we're aware that it doesn't necessarily fit the criteria based on the state legislation. And with that, I want to make sure that we're not, should I say, overfunding, so to speak. So I had originally made the recommendation of 50%, just to make sure that we're not getting ourselves into any trouble down the road. With that, looking at some of the things that the original TIRZ was set up for, and I think it was specifically for Packery Channel. In your presentation further down here, you said the Packery Channel requires about $1.5 million per year for maintenance. I'm assuming that includes dredging at some point in the future, a total of like $36.5 million total for that. So based on the current levels of the $6 million per year, we more than exceed that requirement, right? So we haven't actually created a financing plan to say what we're actually needing. So and when we talked about this originally, I know I recommended 50%. I think Councilman Smith recommended the 75, stepping down to 50 at the end of 20 years. Looking at your budget here of what you expect this to contributions, I mean, we're even at the 50%, you're doubling the current amount that we have, you know, and then if Del Mar comes in, we exceed that. Do we see projections that this is going to be more than, I mean, are we going to need more than that? More than the 12 million a year at 50%?
So it depends on ultimately it depends on what the board recommends to council to include in the project and financing plan. What are the needs of the island? What infrastructure is needed on the island, things like that. And so that's why my recommendation is for right now to leave it at 100% for maybe the next several months, work through that project and financing plan, because the project and financing plans should be a living document. It should address and change with the needs that are covering, you know, the allowable uses underneath the TIRZ. And so, you know, I think it's premature, in my opinion, it's premature to set that contribution amount until further discussion can be had, or it's different than 100%, till the discussion can be had about what other things needs to be accomplished through the TIRZ.
Right, can I just add to that, the staff would provide some recommendations to this board, to the TIRZ board. It's not the board we need to work with groups like ISAC, we need to work with our planning department, we need to work with the developers. The issue is time. We're early in on the TIRZ renewal. We don't know what the projects are. We don't know the impact of the general fund tax rate if we place projects on this TIRZ. So we need more time. So the safest, most conservative recommendation we have today is keep it at 100%. But early on in next year,
Right.
we're talking January, February, March, staff will come to this board with a list of proposed recommendations that could be funded with the TIRZ to benefit the district. And then we make an informed financial decision. Today, we just don't have the information. It's not that we're not trying, it's just that information is just now coming in. Ashlar developers are just now, over the past couple of months, finalizing their development plan, same for the Padre development. And there's other needs on the TIRZ as well, to include Whitecap, the road itself, sidewalks, parking, and so on. So we need to engage our departments, our partners, and come up with a project plan, a budget, and then make a recommendation on what that participation rate would be. We just don't have it today.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Okay, well, this differs from your opinion on the North Beach TIRZ.
Right, because we knew then what we wanted. We
Well,
knew then
you knew
what
what
we
you wanted.
No,
It's
the
not what I
council-
wanted, but
the community knew what they wanted then, and the community was able to express their recommendations. You heard them, we heard them, and we did too as staff. So we were able to present to the TIRZ board and the council at the time what the
Right.
project list would be. We're not there today on this one. We're not saying, Councilman, that we're going to recommend 100%.
I think they're changing history here on that, but I'm not here to argue that.
Later today, we will be.
We'll argue that
Right.
later.
It's
I'll
on the
probably, I'll
agenda.
probably, I'll
Yeah,
probably
it
be
is on
screaming
later
at you
today.
about that, but we'll change that. We'll discuss that later. The last thing is that how much of this, have we talked about any of this funding going to the promotion of the regional parkway to provide a second bridge to cross to the island?
I mean, that's definitely something that can be discussed as an
No,
issue.
I mean, has it been discussed?
No.
There has been conversations,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but not up here, but
Not up
yes.
here.
No,
Conversations, yes.
Conversations.
As we go
have
down,
not,
that would-
even as a council, we haven't even passed a resolution that we're supporting a second crossing to the island.
Well,
Okay,
no,
now,
then-
and let me finish, please,
That's
please, I'd like to finish my thought here. Okay, I've been advocating for the regional parkway since I got on council, right? I went and testified at the MPO about how it should be prioritized for the regional parkway, not only for District 5 to have a second access via Rodfield, but also to have a second access to the island. And here we are, I mean, it hasn't even been broached, it's not even part of this presentation. So I want to make sure that, if we're going to be spending, or you're going to be putting away $23 million a year, which is phenomenal for a TIRZ. It's just, we should be focusing on the right things, right? If it's just for the maintenance of the Packard Channel and some other economic incentives, I think $12 million a year is more than adequate. So, and it's hard for me to justify going at 100% when you're projecting out $23 million a year in contributions for, we're pouring gas, so this is, to me, it's pouring gasoline on development on the island without improving the infrastructure to get people off the island. So, this is gonna be more traffic on the JFK Causeway, it's gonna be more people out there. We gotta you can't just think in the bubble of where this TIRZ is at. You gotta think how it affects the rest of the island and how it affects people getting on and off the island. So this is not something you can just look at it this way. If it does not include some aspect of promoting the regional parkway, I'd be hard pressed to vote for this. Thank you.
That's a great example, Councilman, of why we need more time to see what would be that financial impact and contribution as part of the participation level. And just again, we're not recommending long-term 100%, just until we can get more project data, more engagement with the community. So we already said it, that we will be coming back to this board with a new recommendation in early 2023 with a lesser percentage amount, potentially. But as you bring up, that Parkway Bridge is not something cheap, so it could be, we recommend 100%.
Well,
We
at
don't
the
have
time,
that
it was projected, this was a couple years ago before our superinflation timeframe.
Right.
Was $480 million.
Yeah.
So it's probably gonna be twice that now.
And Councilman, if I may add, that's so loud, to Peter's point, those are decisions that we make. Those are decisions, you've voiced them, but I've invited you, let's sit down. I am on the MPO. The chairman of this body, is obviously still Greg. Sit down with him and let's make it an initiative. We make it an initiative. So I'm with you. It is absolutely something that it's been discussed, but we need to take it to the next step. And so I encourage you to do that. I'm very much in support of that. But let's make that happen because staff is going to put on that list what we decide to put on that list. And so that's always the way it's been. So,
It was me, the majority of this would go to the regional parkway.
of course it would. Okay.
Any other questions? Member Hernandez?
No, thank you for the time. Thank you.
Okay. Member Canales?
Thank you so much. A couple of comments here. The first is, I'm getting an echo here. Okay, we'll just do our best. Noe Hinojosa from Estrada consulted. Hold on just a moment, guys. Let me see if I can get this to go. Okay, I'm sorry. It's frustrating because I'm listening to myself in an echo. I was going to say that Noe Hinojosa from Estrada Hinojosa had written to us and actually made the presentation that the Commissioners Court was able then to receive the data and act upon. And I just wanted to bring out that the 2000 agreement may be limited to 18 years for a total of 40 years, and that he asked for us to verify with counsel for this. So I just wanted to bring that to Heather's attention to see if she might look at that and take a look. I know we're talking about 20 years, but it actually may be 18. And Commissioner Chesney, you might remember that he brought that to our attention. Yes?
I'll definitely follow up on that.
Tell her I don't have a mic.
Yeah, Commissioner Chesney doesn't have a mic.
Judge, your audio's not working.
How about now?
Now, yeah.
Did you hear what I said about the 18 years?
Yes, we heard about the 18 years, and we'll verify that with Mr. Hinojosa.
Okay, and the second issue is that our court, when we received the data, we used your original presentation, Heather, back in February. And so I just want you to know that while I appreciate that you all at the city want more time, and that's up to you, the county has made a decision. And I wanted to illustrate that in many TIRZ and TIFs for the TIRZ, it's always wonderful to be on the same page with regards to your percentages, but it's not always necessary to be so. In fact, historically, we've had different levels of participation from Del Mar College and the hospital district when they were apart. So we feel comfortable with and we may have to bifurcate the motion so that you guys could go forward at 100%, but we would ask that you would honor the county's decision to participate in the manner which Commissioner Chesney outlined, and that was the manner that Noe Hinojosa also provided the data. And just sort of some side notes here. One is that these are conservative views with regards to growth, albeit the two projects that were mentioned, Gulf Shores, Lake Padre, as well as Whitecap, but one can imagine that if those were to be successful, and we believe them to be as they are going forward, there could be many others. So this is a conservative outlook, but we take the information that we have today to make those decisions. And that's why we feel comfortable at the 75% escalating down to 50%. And as I said, if it's 18 years, it would stand to reason that the last 10 years would be 50% if that was a full 10, or it would be 8 years if it was only the last 8. And then finally, with regards to the projects themselves, I would also just note for the record that we not only held multiple town halls, but also community surveys, which indicated how the people felt on the island, that really as to what they wanted and what they believed they needed and was the gap for public infrastructure. And time again, the issue of having a community venue that was modernized as well as affordable and accessible to the Gulf was brought up. And so I just wanted you to know we have that data. We'd be happy to share it with you as we consider, as what Commissioner Chesney said, was the will of the court for $2 million and potentially to come back with other opportunities to showcase to you, including Packery Channel Nature Park, which is a premier nature park on the Gulf Coast, and access to the intercoastal and Packery Channel. It sort of all flows together there nicely. And then rounding up with the boundaries, we certainly have had our opportunity to visit with Blakely Fernandez. She represents our council on the TIRZ, and I just wanted to express that she also would be happy to work with your attorneys in the vein of playing Scrivener, as she has looked at the boundary issue intensely for us and believes it's in our best interest to include them by geographical description rather than just take a chance that they could or could not be deemed included as part of using TIF money for the TIF fund of the TIRZ. So I think that kind of illustrates that there are some details, but I believe that the genesis of today's motion is really to at least bring forth the county's participation. We wholeheartedly are excited about the opportunities that this new TIRZ brings to us. We're excited about the funding that can happen. And of course, it goes without saying, both to the mayor's comments and to Councilman Hernandez, we also, as I sit on the MPO and we understand regional transportation needs, I imagine that a new regional causeway would be around the $800 million mark today. And I'm not sure in which realm, but we might have to have Dubai come to the island in order to have this fund be able to fund the regional parkway. But having said that, that's something that we could look at. But what this particular fund can do now for us is create transformational change, not only for the developments that are existing and progressing, but for the ones that have never been addressed. So again, those are my comments, and I look forward to the motion that allows the county to put forth what the county is comfortable with, which would be, again, as articulated, the 75%, scaling down to 50%. That's what we need to be able to bring forth here today. And we would ask that you would allow us to do so.
Thank you, Board Member Canales. Board Member Pusley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Heather, and listening to you and Peter, so what you want us to do today is just continue the 100% contribution until you all, staff has had an opportunity to work out what the budget and projects are going to look like for the foreseeable future for this TIRZ, and then you would come back and make a recommendation as to what the percentage participation level should be for the city, and of course the county's already said what they want to do, and then we'd have to see what Del Mar College would want to do at that time. So we could at that time include the what Mr. Councilman Hernandez was talking about. I mean, we could certainly do that. And you know, it's been my experience, and Mayor, with all due respect, I know you serve on the MPO, but I've never had much luck dealing with the MPO. And so if we can designate money through the TIRZ that goes specifically to projects of infrastructure type to keep up with the growth that's going to occur on the island, and we all know that's going to happen, then I think that's a good thing. I don't necessarily think that's bad. And, you know, to get, and I know Commissioner Chesney remembers this, to get County Road 52 done, I went over to the MPO and respectively respectively asked them to drop that project from their list so we could get it done, because we didn't think they would get it done in our lifetime if we didn't. So, anyway, those are just comments, but I think it's a reasonable presentation.
And I'll add to, my understanding is that they can hear me online, but I'm not projecting through the speaker here, so I'll just speak very loudly for you. So one of the things, a point of clarification, is that when we're talking about the contribution percentage, that's specifically for the city, because the city sets their contribution percentage. The county's contribution percentage is set through the interlocal agreement, and different entities within the TIRZ can have different contribution levels, and that's not uncommon. We've done that in some of our other TIRZ. So, you know, we can easily accommodate the request by the county through the interlocal agreement to amend their contribution per what was recommended, with the 75% stepping down to the 50%, but still keep the city's contribution for right now. And yes, you were correct in the statement that what we're asking for right now is to leave it at 100% until we are able to walk through a lot of these details that we need to walk through, and then at that point set what we feel is a reasonable contribution amount to go forward.
Yeah, and I think it's also very reasonable for the county to ask for those expenditures. For example, the things that Commissioner Chesney mentioned with the King Pavilion, because they have participated for a long time and haven't, and the county doesn't have the ability to have the funding that the city and some of the other governmental entities do. So I think those are fair as well.
Yes.
And can I just add to that, Chairman, that the TIRZ board here today, the action in front of the board is this board setting its participation rate. The county and any other participating entity would be presented to the city council, not to this board. So for the purposes of today's meeting, they're mutually exclusive. It's good to hear what the county wants and what they're recommending, but this board won't approve that or accept it. It's the city council that would consider that in a local agreement on
That's
the county's
correct.
participation.
But we could have a resolution from this board to recommend and honor the county's proposal.
Well, yes. Yes, but I think the point is that Peter's clarifying that ultimately it goes to the
Right.
city council, not this board ultimately. But yes, of course, a resolution can be, proposed for anything.
That's true, right. Yeah, thank you, Judge. I just want to clarify the actions of this board today, is that this board only sets the TIRZ's participation rate. It's a city TIRZ. And then the other entities like Nueces County and Del Mar College, their participation rate would be set through an interlocal agreement, not approved by this board, but the city council. But you're right, the board could make a resolution to be presented to city council. It's not required today necessarily,
Yes,
but.
sir.
And we can
Yeah.
include that, but that's
Yes,
something
I
we can
understand.
actually amend, we can add to the motion for the project and financing plan. We can add that contribution percentage request in that motion today as it goes to to go to city council.
Okay. Thank you.
I
Board
think that
member,
would be acceptable.
Board member Hunter?
And, excuse me, Chairman, as a follow-up, it should be noted, at least for the people listening online, that every member of city council is present today. I think I saw that. And therefore, I understand when you say it's going to go to city as far as the process being before city council on an agenda before city council. But just for the concept here, everybody at the city sits on this board.
Yeah. Thank you. Council, member Hunter?
Thank you. This is just a little bit of help. Since Peter's been here, we've been through 4 city managers in 7 years. So to give you a little update on where some of them left off, about 8-9 years ago, the MPO, when we were going through the fight between the wind farms and the Navy, had to redirect our plan. The Navy won. We redirected our plan with the MPO to Rodfield. And even before it was redirected to Rodfield, the TIRZ was looked at as a potential funding source for this bridge. So there's a lot of ideas that you guys can look at, and but you're gonna have to go way back.
Great, thank you, Councilman. We'll do that.
Board member Lerma?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one question, Heather. You said that you guys need time to come back before the council to figure out what you're going to need as far as percentage-wise or make your plan. What's the timeline? 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months? When are you looking at coming back before us to ask for what is it that we need?
Our recommendation would be we would do this in pretty quick succession. So we really would like to, from a staff perspective, we'd really like to have a lot of this work through before we go into our next budget process, because it'll affect how we budget for the TIRZ and what amount goes into the general fund and debt service. And so it's really, and like I said, the TIRZ, the project and financing plan is a living, breathing document. And so this would be kind of the first round. We would identify what those near needs are and even some longer term needs, but we can always continue to come back and amend that project and financing plan. But we do need to have an idea of what we may or may not have in that project and financing plan to set that revenue. But it would be in a very short succession, not over a period of 24 months, but rather within a 3 to 6 month period, I would anticipate, depending on availability and the board and direction from executive staff.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, it's,
Short answer to what you just said is 3 to 6 months.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, yeah, 3 to 6 months.
Board Member Chesney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this one working? Okay. So Heather, the way I heard what I think what you said was basically, no, if we participate, if we have the county, the county is voted to participate and at a level. So really, that's what we've said we're going to do. And what you've said is, nobody can force us to do it any other way than what we want to do it. So
Yes.
we don't even, I was really just reporting it. I don't think we need, that's how I understood it. So I don't think we need a resolution on that part. I would like a vote today on the extension of the 2 members and the extension of the boundaries, because those are things that have to be voted on and have to be recommended, I would think, by this board. If the county, since the county has participated and we've already voted, that's how we're in, right? So the city can decide how to be in however they want to. So I'm good with not needing any kind of resolution on that part, because we've already said that we want in, we're in, we think this is a great plan. It's going to increase funding with the levels that we are. It's going to recoup some money for our entity, but it's going to make sure that TIRZ is strong and good, and it's going to provide more money than it is now with the participation we're at. So I feel like that's a comfortable position, but I would like to get a recommendation by this board today, especially on the extension of the boundaries and the Briscoe King.
Okay.
And the board members.
Okay. And we can, if, it seemed like that, Member Canales really wanted us to memorialize that, we can do that, or we can, just address it through the interlocal agreement, either one.
Well, yeah, I guess, but the interlocal agreement has to be, agreed upon by the council.
Yes.
And they're all here, and so I would like to know where we are, because the TIRZ vote that we made was kind of a package vote. We want to participate, and we're in, and we think it's important at this funding level that's going to make more money, but we do want more participation. We do want the boundaries extended, and obviously we would hope that the committee would recommend, since this is the first time we have made a recommendation for funding, those are all things that we would like to have, or that I would like to have voted on if possible today.
In both of those actions, so we've already discussed we can include the inclusion of the 2 additional seats. We would propose that we would include that in the extension motion.
2 additional what? I'm sorry.
The 2 different seats. Our members on the board, we would include that as an amendment to the extension motion as a recommendation to City Council. And then on the extension of the boundaries, we can modify our motion to extend the boundaries to include those areas requested by the county.
And we'll send you the backup document from our meeting, and we'll get you whatever, I'm going to send it, and whatever y'all need back, we'll get you back. So just, it would be obviously subject to all the legal documents that
Exactly.
you need to verify
Sure.
it. I understand that, but
Yes.
we do those subject to motions a lot, so. Thank you, Mr.
Board Member Hernandez.
Sorry, I just want to clarify something for Judge Canales. I did not even say that this was going to be used entirely for the regional parkway. It's to a portion so we can fund part of it, not to fund the whole 800 million. We couldn't do it anyway. Most of the regional parkway is on King Ranch property. So we'd have to have participation from the state. MPO would have to make it a priority. It's not, I just want to make that clarification. Also, I want to say I'm disappointed that this is happening right in the middle of election. And I don't know if that was by design, but, to put people on the spot during an election, in voting for this, and especially for our at-large members and our mayor that are in the middle of election and voting for this kind of stuff, it should have been done this should have been done back in July. We should have had a financing plan. We know that this TIRZ is going to expire in December, and yet we're just right now in October looking to renew, and then not even have a financing plan. So I want to say I'm disappointed that we don't have all this stuff in place. And maybe it was by design, I don't know. But I'm disappointed that we don't have this stuff in place and we put it in the middle of an election to where you put people in bad spots. So I want to say I'm dissatisfied with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Hunter?
Sorry, good points. I would have voted for it anyways, but those are very good points. I'm just rescinding my motion. I guess I have to rescind my motion then? Is that the case? So that we can add his amendments?
We make the motion, and then we make a motion to amend, and then we
Okay.
vote on the amendment.
Okay, never mind. Motion stands then.
I second his
motion. Did we
I'll
have a
second.
second?
I'm seconding.
Oh, okay.
And then the recommended motion to amend would be to amend the motion by adding 2 additional seats, which technically would be appointed by city council at the recommendation of the county. It's just the way it would have to work under the state law. That's how Commissioner Chesney is appointed to this board right now.
So moved.
Okay.
And what was the first part of the motion that was amended by the second part?
That would be the motion recommending that city council extend the term of the tax increment reinvestment zone number 2 for an additional 20 years with an expiration date of December 31, 2042, to include 2 additional board members to be appointed by city council at the recommendation of the county.
As you also mentioned, though, that we will be looking at it again in 3 to 6 months. Might as well just add at a maximum of 6 months, bring this back.
Yes.
And then would that also include?
That'll go to city council.
Okay.
That won't go back to this board.
And would that
Gotcha.
also include the extension of the boundaries? Would that be?
That's a second motion.
Second motion? Okay, just keeping it clear. I appreciate it, Mr.
Okay,
Hunter.
so we have a
Thank you.
motion and a second.
Yeah, but we're still discussion. Member Postler?
So do we have the geographical boundaries of what this extension, did y'all submit that, Brent?
We're sending the backup
Yes.
Okay,
it hadn't been sent to you yet, but I'm getting it sent to Amy today.
okay.
Can you just briefly describe them, not meets and bounds, but,
I can show you. I mean, I can show you the diagram that I'm sending, and it's, I don't,
well, that's another vote.
Melinda Hinojosa,
I mean, I've got the legend here that
Has sent them.
It includes Padre Bayou, it includes, I believe, Packery Channel, our Packery Channel Park. It's, I don't know how, I mean, that would be the areas that I would tell you that would give you the points of reference that I know you know where that is. And again, I'm sending that over to, Amy, Peyton's sending that over to Amy today. And oh, is that in there? I'm sorry.
Chairman, we're going to cover the boundaries in the second part of the presentation, if you want
Okay.
to consider the motion on the floor, and then Heather has a few more slides just on the boundary.
Well, we like you say, we can consider the motion without the boundaries.
Yeah, the second part of the presentation's on the boundaries, and we can look at the maps.
Yeah, we can, if there's part of your presentation, I just showed her
Okay.
where it would be, that's
Yeah.
very easy to point out.
Yeah.
It's not a large area, actually.
Okay. Well, I'm not, okay. So, thank you. I'd like to make a few comments on this with it. I mean, this is an extremely important issue for the island. Why do we have the TIRZ originally as Packery Channel? We all know that. It funded that. We wouldn't have the water exchange bridge if we didn't have the TIRZ. That's what got the water exchange bridge over the line, and the reason we have people coming in here on there is because we built the water exchange bridge. But we're seeing the island is really taking off. We've always heard about potential. It's really happening right now on there. Cinnamon Shores, which is about 1,500 feet from our city limits, is going like gangbusters. Those lots are going for $400,000 to $500,000 each. They're closing Unit 5 right now. That's another $120 million in lots. You've got other projects there. You've got Sunflower in Port Aransas. You've got Pamelia that are kind of falling off the Cinnamon Shores. That Cinnamon Shores is going to come here, that element on the island. And that's, when we talk about these projects, so many times on the island, we talked about projects that may be coming or things that for the 6 years I've been here, that's been the case. But now we've got actual construction. Canals are being built or they are built. Bulkheads are being run or they are run on there. We have streets going in on the Lake Padre side with it. We are going to a completely different scenario. Personally, I am comfortable with the financing plan that the county approved on there, that what our financial folks have presented us is a very rich amount that can be able to move the island forward, doing the public infrastructure that's necessary. A little bit of history on our TIRZ is it's always been for public improvement, whether it's Packard Channel, Water Exchange Bridge, or other items necessary on there. We saw the TIRZ as a backstop for the revetments on Packard Channel. $14 million. If we hadn't had the TIRZ in place, we might not have got that, or that was our backstop for the revetments. The city of Corpus Christi has a contractual obligation to maintain Packard Channel to, I think it's either 8.35 or 8.65 depth. We haven't done that good a job on there. I can see the dredging estimate that we have being a little bit short. So that's our primary concern. To remember, Hernandez is about the second. We've got other needs on there. We have the second bridge. We have 361 interchange and then 361 itself. All of these are going to require local funding to do them. All are very necessary if we're going to take the full potential of the island. We do have a lot of needs out there, but we have a very robust, as presented to us, amount that we can do. So personally, I'm comfortable with the county's funding plan for this body with it. The numbers are very adequate on there. Our history as a TIRZ is we do not subsidize third parties. We promote development projects that benefit every person on the island and this community, as opposed to some of our other areas with it. So I think for right now that we have a motion and a second on the floor with it. It doesn't address the boundaries. We'll catch the boundaries in the next part, but at least we can go to that. So can we read the motion out just for clarity?
It's a motion recommending that City Council extend the term of Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 2 for an additional 20 years with an expiration date of December 31, 2042, and to include on the board 2 additional seats to be appointed by City Council at the recommendation of the county.
And Amy, that can we do it within this structure? So we're seeing some changes with Del Mar on there. Could we add some proportional type language in there? So what's the TIRZ all about is how much money's being put in, so that the board has rough proportionality to the donations of the entities. Would that be a possibility?
So we can appoint however we want as City Council.
Okay.
Each taxing entity that's not City Council is only allowed to appoint 1 person. And just as a note, because I realized this as I was reading it, in order to add the 2 seats, we are going to have to remove the Hospital District and or Flower Bluff, who do not contribute.
Okay, so and you said and or.
And we have to remove 1 because we only have 15 and we currently have 14.
Okay. Well, and as I'm talking about rough proportionality on there, we've the Hospital District by law is going off at the end of this year, correct?
Correct.
And Flower Bluff has not contributed for...
Flower Bluff never has.
Never has.
When we created this TIRZ, at that time, any taxing entity was allowed to appoint to the board. That law changed.
Okay.
We just didn't update our ordinance.
And in Del Mar, we may or may not. And I think for most of you all will be here next year, something to keep in mind is that rough proportionality. You come to the table, you have a voice. You don't come to the table, should we be looking at it. Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor with it. Amy read it out.
And all this motion does is extend the TIRZ for 20 years, and then we're going to come back and determine at some point what that percentage participation will be for the city.
Right, and that'll go to city council when we bring you the ordinance to extend the TIRZ.
Okay. And so, and then we'll have to also, and I don't understand how we can talk about the geographic boundaries that the county wants to add if we don't have anything to look at.
Right.
We have the city recommended changes that we're confident in recommending today. And similar to the finance budget plan, we'll have to come back and amend the boundaries again once we get the specifics from the county.
Okay, then
You can do that.
why are we going to put that in the motion then?
That's a
It's
second,
not-
it's
it's
not
not
in
in the
this
motion.
motion.
Okay, I thought somebody was trying to include that.
No.
I thought Commissioner Chesney was
She said I
asking
need
for
to-
it to be included,
But
right?
she said I need to do that as another motion.
It'll be another motion.
As a second motion.
Item
Yeah, but
number
we-
5 does
yeah.
the boundaries.
We can't, where's the paperwork that
Okay.
shows?
We don't have it, that's the point, yeah.
Then
So
why
we,
are you
Then
voting?
we can't
But
do it.
we're not, it will be in the next motion. So let's go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the table, which does not include the boundaries, and then we'll discuss the boundaries. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay.
Mr.
You get
Smith?
that, Ruth? Now we've got the amended. Councilman Hunter, did you have amendment?
That was. 'cause
That
we-
included the amendment.
Okay, that included the amendment. Okay. Okay, boundaries?
Chairman Smith,
Yes.
I need to get the votes for the 3 that are online.
Okay,
I have
sure.
to see them. Can we get Barbara Canales?
Yes.
Your
Aye.
vote. Okay. Could we get member Needham vote?
I think Flower Bluff is non-voting, but I vote aye if my vote counts.
Okay. And then member Turner? Member Turner? Okay, I'll take that as a abstain.
Just so you know, I don't know why you're referring to Maggie Turner. I think just because I'm using her laptop and you see her
I can't hear what you said.
name.
Mr. Chairman, the data's been sent to your council. She's getting it printed out. It's pretty simple. It doesn't take much to look at. It'll take you about 2 seconds to look at what we're talking about on the boundary extensions, and that'll be printed for you here shortly. I thought it had already been sent, so we'll get that printed out for you.
Okay. And we can start the presentation with the Whitecap Preserve. That's 38 acres or 32 acres.
right.
Either that or what we can do if you want to, we can switch over and talk about the project and financing plan and then come back to the boundary modification once we get that printout, if the chairman would like. Or do you want to go ahead and continue on the modification?
Okay, let's go ahead and switch project and financing. Let's start with Briscoe King first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had presented, and I'm not sure where it is in the, this agenda, if it got in here or not. Is it, what tabs is it under?
It is.
Here we go.
It is incorporated.
Basically, I know most of you are familiar with the Briscoe King Pavilion. It is an aging community facility. We anticipate upgrades that include the installation of climate control systems, modification to meet current ADA requirements, conversion from septic to sewer system, installation of fire protection system, improvements to the parking areas, as well as improvements to the inside of the space to add possibly a kitchen so that it can become a catering facility more active. It currently does not have any climate control. The climate control there is you open the doors and the breeze blows through. That's our climate control now.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful facility. It's got a boardwalk that walks right to the beach. It is used very, very regularly on the island. It's a great public space. We've had that on our Parks Board master plan for years and years and years and years. This is nothing new. This is just something that I have tried to put to the forefront over the last year, year and a half, and to find some additional funding for it. We've looked at different ways to renovate it, but with some of the floodplain changes, if you go in there and do too many, then you have to build it higher. And so right now we're grandfathered into what we can do, but we believe, and I don't believe the $2 million will be enough for the entire project. And again, we certainly, again, with the caveat that we probably will come back, but we think this will get us off to a really great start to make it a facility that will be very well used on the island as a gathering space. As all of you know, and many of you are on the island regularly and familiar with it, there is not a lot of public space out there. There's very little public space. There's very little gathering places where people can go and have meetings and have weddings and do things of that nature. This pavilion has been used by the community for many, many years in a very aged state. So we're here today because we believe, and I think the staff has recommended, that this meets the requirements for funding, because it is, and I can't remember the wording she used exactly, even though it's not currently in the boundaries, it is
Indirectly.
For the benefit of.
for the direct benefit of. Thank you. It does have for the direct benefit of the TIRZ, and is a very important facility on the island. So the county respectfully, and this was again a vote by the entire Commissioners Court to make this request. The county respectfully makes its first request to the TIRZ in the amount of $2 million for the funding of Briscoe King Pavilion. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. How big is Briscoe King?
About 2,000 square feet. It's not huge, but it's a very nice facility, and it's got, again, people use that boardwalk. They go out and they use that for wedding pictures and things of that nature. And then if you remember, the parking lot is humongous out there. And there are major drainage problems with that parking lot that will have to be part of this process. And it's definitely something that needs to happen as well, because we've got a lot of drainage issues out there too.
I have a question. Or are they on? No. Okay. Commissioner, what, so it's open air right now?
Correct.
I mean, do we have a master plan for this, or this is just your thought? Is there a master plan, or is there one, is that just in theory kind of, which I understand? But I guess my point is, in addition to this 2 million, which would likely not be enough for
Right.
the grand picture, what is the grand picture, right, of this?
I think the grand picture is going to be about a $3 to $4 million. I was shooting for 3, but I just don't know what the inflation and what all's going to happen when we get out there and get the cost estimates. So this gets us started down the path, and then again, knowing we're probably going to come back to the TIRZ when we get a final number. But really, we were trying to get this done before the end of the year. We were trying to get this done in anticipation of these meetings with lots of different funding sources and money being allocated and so forth. But I do think there will be more needed. But I don't want to equivocate a number, because we really need to get, the Parks Board needs to weigh in. Okay, here's what we want to do. Here's what we envision it to be. Cost it out and do it. But I think it'll be a $3 to $4 million project.
But your thoughts are that all of the monies are going to come from here, or there going to be other outreach? Is there going to be outreach from other places for this funding?
I'll be honest, I haven't gotten that far. My anticipation would be to have the county participate in this as well. But again, I don't know the exact number of the project yet. I certainly will be putting in some of the funds that each commissioner is allocated. This is a very important part of my precinct. I want to make sure that the island is always well funded. There could be, don't know yet, and I don't want to over promise and under deliver. I like to do it the other way around. There could be the potential for some ARPA funding for this. Don't know yet, but I believe this has some ARPA funding potential. So that could also be a funding source as well for this.
Okay.
Thank you. I think $1,000 a square foot you ought to be able to improve it some with that.
Well, and that's the parking lot drainage. That's going to be, that's the $800,000 probably $1 million gorilla.
Okay.
So that is a
$500 a foot for the building, and the balance for site work. Okay. entertain a motion for adding $2 million to the project and financing plan for improvements to Briscoe King Community Center.
I would make that motion,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion, we
I'll
have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
So I just have a point of order here. Where is this, so we're including this in item number 6 is where we're,
Yeah, this is part of item number 6. Item
Okay.
number 6 includes 3 or 4 recommended projects.
okay, all right, good.
This is one of them. So I don't know if we want to wait and consider them all together.
No, we need to take it item by item. Okay, so we have a motion, Member Mahardo seconded. All in favor?
I second.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Board Member Hernandez is in the other room, so,
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
okay.
it passes.
Well, he's always in favor. Okay. Okay, our,
Chairman,
yes, is this Member Canales?
it's Judge
Yeah.
Canales, yes. I
Okay.
haven't been able to get your attention. I was going to add,
We just lost you. Judge, we can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Now, yeah. We hear you now.
Greg?
There.
Okay, I haven't been able to get your attention.
Okay, you got it now.
I would like just to make a few comments on the last item, because I think it's important and it addresses some of the mayor's comments. Would you be willing to allow me to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I wanted to let people know that I think at the end of the day, a smarter financing plan for Briscoe King Pavilion would be to get the assessment that is already being undertaken, at least from the Coastal Parks Board perspective. They have voted to do a capital improvement plan. When that does get done, you would see a final number. I think the 2 million represents the opportunity to hire architects and to begin sort of the concept, but with the dollars that the county puts in and with the extension of the TIRZ for 20 years, you could assist the TIRZ overall fund balance by allowing the county to bond for the needed dollars so that it could be fully funded. And by doing so, you make certain those reserves stay high for the TIF, and it would allow for a very small payment to be made out of the county's allocation every year. So the city could allow their monies to go for city projects, and the county could allow their dollars to be, again, amortized over 20 years and provide for a small payment that does everything you need it to do, which is fully fund an important project, and by not taking away from any of the other great city projects or ISAC projects that could come forward. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. The $2 million is a great gesture to get us started, particularly on the parking lot and the drainage, because the parking lot, as Commissioner Chesney said, is about $800,000. But overall, and you know this because I've shown this to you, and we've been talking about this since February of 2022, this is a mechanism that was brought forth by Estrada Hinojosa after asking what the optionalities might be. So I just want to share that with the council, because this is the first time all 9 of you have gathered and we've been able to say that. There is a way to do it where the TIRZ keeps the largest fund balance each and every year, also creates accountability for the county, and fully funds a project that all island residents can enjoy. So I just wanted to share that with the mayor and with the council, because I believe that to be the very most sound financing plan for our future, and it's one that's fully supported by our financial advisors together. And I say that because Estrada Hinojosa represents the city, and they also happen to represent the county.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge
I
Canales.
apologize for
Okay.
for this delayed video.
Okay. Next item is boundary on there, so let's bifurcate that. First, let's talk about the Whitecap Preserve.
Okay. Okay, so, for boundary modifications, as we have been discussing, boundaries can be modified at any time, but the parcels do need to be contiguous to the current TIRZ to be eligible for addition. As those parcels come on, they do have the base year as when they're brought on, so they will have a different base year from the remainder of the TIRZ. And if any parcels are excluded at any time, you lose that base year and they would be reset if they come back in. So looking at the current TIRZ boundaries, this is how the TIRZ is currently laid out. As of right now, the TIRZ does not extend over to the beach access road, which is where, over to 6, which is where the county assets are. In addition, if you look up towards the right-hand side, right there off of, as you come in onto the island, there is a area which is near Sand Dollar Avenue, which is where the nature park is currently, along with a portion of some residential that was excluded in the original formation of the TIRZ. So what has been requested as part of the, this reflects the request for Whitecap, not necessarily for the county. I know that you do have the sheet that shows what the extension is, and we can talk about that a little bit. But if you look up to the north of, or the top of the picture, there are 2 areas that are in blue. Those areas are parts of the Whitecap development that currently are excluded from the TIRZ. That was just the way that the TIRZ boundaries were drawn whenever they were first, when it was first adopted. And so the request is to extend the boundaries for the TIRZ to ensure that the full area of the Whitecap development is included within those TIRZ boundaries. So those 2 little shoulder areas there, those areas are primarily undeveloped. And on this, one of the reasons why we feel like this needs to be, or we're recommending this to be adopted today, is because of the base year. Right now, if these are pulled into the boundaries, the base year will be the value as of 1/1/22. If this is delayed and it's not decided for until after January of 23, then the base year on those parcels will be the value as of 1/1/23, which will be an increased value due to the platting, due to the development that has already occurred with the land, canals, things like that. So we are recommending that those parcels be brought in now, so that we preserve that value as of 1/1/22. Here's a little bit closer look of them. So you see within the 2 circled areas, these are the areas that are being proposed. Like I said, it just makes the TIRZ boundaries, extends them out to where the street areas are. So the TIRZ boundaries will extend it out to Commodore, to Aquarius, and Dos Marinas, to include all of those areas that are within the Whitecap project, but is not included in the TIRZ. Yeah, it's primarily undeveloped right now.
Okay.
So,
go
ahead.
Councilman Hernandez?
I know the question I asked here to our attorney. I was asking if adding public property was any restrictions on percentage of public property, but it's actually just a restriction on housing, and I believe it's limited to 30%.
30% residential. When you calculate that 30%, you exclude the public property, but 30% residential.
Right. So that was my question. So that it was answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hunter?
Kind of unsure how to ask this, but how are beaches associated with infrastructure if we own it? And can we utilize TIRZ funds to reinvigorate our beaches?
Yes, that is an eligible, I think right now, the way that the TIRZ goes, and we'll have to see exactly on the meets and bounds, but it does go down to...
It looks like it goes to the water line. And the reason I'm asking is we've been... Councilman Pusley here, not too long ago, brought up before the CVB meeting that we need more businesses on the beachfront. And we've been saying that for 8 years, but yet here we go again where we don't see it on this, and here's another opportunity where we can. I just think that we should look at that.
And that is definitely, so, yeah, we'll have to look at the exact meets and bounds, but I believe that the TIRZ does extend on to the coastal. I'm not sure exactly if it's beyond the dunes or not. We can look at that. And that is something that, yes, you could use TIRZ funds for infrastructure to support those
Great.
Future possible business, if
Very
that's
good.
the recommendation.
Thank you. I'd like to see that opportunity there in the future, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to,
Councilmember Smith, it's Ruth. Member Canales would like
Okay.
to speak.
Member Canales, you got the floor.
Actually, it was answered. I was going to answer Councilman Hunter's question regarding the beaches. And of course, again, we also concur, as that was the whole motivation behind Bob Hall Pier and funding public infrastructure to host a concessionaire. But I, of course, want to point out that when it comes to renourishment of the beaches, the best source of funding is our KEPRA funding from the state. But back on the Packery Channel Nature Park, I just wanted to point out that that particular need there are roads. In order to have free public access for small crafts and kayaks, the real need there on that living shoreline is for road infrastructure. Just wanted to clarify that. I know they're totally two different, Padre Bailly question versus nature park, but I just wanted to give you that supplement. I hope that helps.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. I'll entertain a motion to expand the boundaries to include the Whitecap.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Member Judge Canales,
Yes, I'm an aye.
and Member Needham. Is Member Needham on the line?
Yes, I'm an aye. But again, I don't think Flower Bluff has voting rights on this.
Thank you.
Okay. Now let's talk about the county's proposal.
Okay. Can you pull the presentation back up, please? So what the county is proposing, you have that in front of you, and I'm going to do my best here to possibly draw here. I'm an artist, not an accountant. I mean, an accountant, not an artist. So what the proposal is so I don't know if you can see that or not. But it would be approximately, it would fill in, there's a portion up to the top of the map, over to the right-hand side, that contains some residential and then the park area. So it would be strictly the county's park area. And then it would be extending the boundaries down along the coastline to then also include the county park along with the Briscoe King Pavilion area. So we because this is just a recommendation, the board can still recommend, even though we don't have the exact meets and bounds, to go ahead and recommend that we include these areas, and then as we take this to city council, we'll have the exact meets and bounds that are being requested at that time.
Mr. Chesney?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The document that has been passed out to you, which was passed by the Nueces County Commissioners Court as part of the package recommendation to extend the TIRZ and to extend the boundaries of the TIRZ. It's fair, as you can see, it's an easy fit. It's very contiguous with the areas that are already included in the TIRZ, and we just believe that this is the better part of valor to extend for 20 years to include the county owned property in the TIRZ, since we have been a 20-year participant and are looking at being another 20-year participant. So pretty simple drawing. We will provide, the necessary meets and bounds as needed. Again, I've sent all this to Amy and asked her to respond and just tell us what we need to get back. But we would appreciate the consideration. In fact, would make the motion to extend the boundaries to include the properties as noted on the documents that has been provided to each of you.
Thank you. Board Member Pusley?
Okay, I don't have any trouble doing this, but I'm trying to figure out where on our agenda it speaks to this.
We've noticed the item to extend the boundaries of the tax increment reinvestment zone. I would argue that we can go ahead and make this motion if we would like to today. It is just a recommendation, so the final approval would come from City Council, and we would, of course, have meets and bounds included on the City Council agenda when we do that.
Now, so it's your opinion, even though this is not listed on our agenda, that we can do this? I don't.
It's not technically a required action of this board to make recommendations to extend the boundaries. So it's not required that the board make this recommendation. It can go directly to City Council.
So this recommendation needs to go to the City Council, not to this board?
And all this motion does is recommend to City Council. So it would have been part of number 5 to change how we're extending the boundaries. We're just extending it.
Yeah, I know, but it wasn't listed. Everybody here knows I have a big deal about if it's not on the agenda, we can't take action on it. So this is not on the agenda.
Commissioner Pusley, this is Barbara Canales.
Yes.
I asked our counsel the exact same question, and she informed me that pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, all that's required is that it has a general nexus to the item. So if you're talking about boundaries, you can have a motion to recommend to include different boundaries. As long as the subject matter has to do with the appropriate motion, it meets the satisfaction of the Open Meetings Act. I asked the same exact question, and that was the answer that I asked, and that was what I was given.
Okay.
And Amy, do you concur with that?
Yeah, that's articulated well, and I've already also discussed it with the city attorney, and we agree that we can make this motion today.
Say that again, I can't hear you.
Sorry, that was a well-articulated way of describing it. There is a obvious nexus between this motion and what's posted on the agenda, and I've already discussed it with the city attorney, so we do agree we can take the motion today.
That's a good word, nexus. I'm gonna remember that next time we have something I wanna put on the agenda that's not on here.
Well, it was requested to be on the agenda, and they told me this was going to satisfy my request to put it on the agenda, Councilman Pusley, just so you.
And as I said at the beginning, I have no problem with doing this, but I'm a stickler for what gets voted on here by this council or this board has to be on the agenda so that everybody in the community has an opportunity to see what it is we're doing. They have a right to know.
So to staff, when is this going to come before council?
Currently, we have it scheduled for November. The first reading would be November the 15th, with the second reading December the 6th.
Okay, so we will be discussing the boundary then. That's the deciding, this is an advisory to the council what we're doing today.
That is correct.
So by November 15th and then the 22nd, we will have a determination. So then the Commissioners Court will be able to proceed with the MOU accordingly.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. With it, I've got some concerns about the agenda on it too. I think we don't have much discussion here. The fact that we'll be seeing it coming forward in the next couple of weeks, that gives Commissioners Court adequate time to prior to the MOU, because this is one of the requirements on your three-legged stool, right, Commissioner?
It is. I mean, it was all kind of a package recommendation that this was what the court voted on. And so if you're not going to move forward with something or not going to support, then I've got to go back and put it
Yeah.
back on the agenda to revote everything, and I'd certainly prefer not to do that if everybody's okay with this, and the attorney has advised that it's allowable. And as I said, I did request this to be on the agenda, and when I called and was told that this would satisfy the requirement, so.
Okay. Hearing no other comment, well,
Bring it to city council.
yeah.
How do we make the motion?
I'd made the motion to expand the boundaries as articulated on the paper.
Okay, we have a
today.
motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item of business is project and financing.
Thank you,
on-
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. But you're not done till we do it
No, I'm not
15th and 22nd. So, yeah, this is just, okay.
I'll be back.
Well, you got, okay, you got 10 minutes.
Okay.
That's $1.3 million a minute.
No pressure whatsoever. So we've talked a lot about this, but the project financing plan is your living, breathing document that helps guide and sets out what projects are allowed, what activities are allowed within the TIRZ, and what those dollar amounts are. So just a reminder of allowable uses, it's public infrastructure, public improvements, capital maintenance of public improvement of infrastructures, reimbursements to private parties that make improvements, and programs or other projects that benefit the zone. So we talked a little bit about the fact that we have not delved very deeply. We have a high-level idea of what is needed within the zone or what has been identified. And so first, we have ongoing Packery channel maintenance, improved amenities within the TIRZ, stormwater, water, and wastewater infrastructure, mobility, connectivity, and walkability within the zone, environmental conservation and preservation within the zone, quality entertainment and retail infrastructure, along with water circulation and quality. This is not an all-inclusive list, but these are some of the items that have been identified that are needed within the zone area. So the first is addressing the Packery channel. So looking at the schedule, and this is a short snapshot, but this kind of gives you the repetitive nature of it. We do need dredging, monitoring, maintenance along the Packery channel. So,
Heather, I hate to interrupt on that, but I'm watching the clock with it. What we're talking about has huge impacts. Is there any possibility we could hold another meeting in the very near future? This is where the rubber meets the road, and it's not fair to this body. It's not fair to applicants for this on there to do it in 8 minutes.
Sure. I think the challenge, if we could, would there be a possibility to discuss the white cap piece of it?
No.
No, okay. Because this is something that we wanted to take to council for consideration on the 15th. and
Well, if
so-
we've got a meeting on the 1st, could we have a meeting before that?
We can do it next Tuesday.
Let's do it next, if the board,
The board's available, we could schedule something at 10 o'clock or something.
First?
Yeah, still gives us enough time. We can post it this Friday.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and Member Wahardo, it's just, you want to hit the high points. Let's use up our balance segments.
One second, but what I mean. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you could recess until tomorrow.
We have to post it.
I think you can recess that meeting.
Yeah, Councilman, I was just talking to the attorney. We could recess till later today after the city council meeting and resume,
Okay, well,
if
that's,
that's the pleasure of the council.
Wait, you're going to be quick? You're going to be done that quick with a
Right.
council meeting? Wow.
Yeah, we have a shorter agenda today.
yeah.
So we could resume if
That's
we could get
awesome.
the other
Wish
board
we
members to attend.
Board members, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great suggestion. Yeah, you got to stick around then.
What time will you be back? I will be happy to return.
Well, we'll ask,
If someone can just send me a
The mayor.
notification, I'll come back. Thank you.
okay. So,
So we recess?
okay, well, that,
Motion to recess until later this afternoon.
we have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you in the audience in indeterminate time.